why I say this. I have to tell you why I say this, because I'm biased. I'm not objective. I'm his wife. But I am not speaking as a wife. I'm speaking as a mother, as a professional, as a citizen who desperately wants a different future for my little girls who I care deeply about. There is nothing more important to me on the face of this earth than my girls. And if I know I feel that way about my girls, I know you feel that way about your children. And I don't want to hand them over this mess. Because if things are this bad now, what's it going to be like in 4 and 8 and 12 years? I am not willing to take the risk on the same thing. So I'm here because I know Barack is different. And we need a whole lot of different right now. And it's not different in that conventional way. I want people to think about character. Because, see, character matters, and we don't talk about it anymore. Character counts. As my father said to me, you measure the quality and character of an individual by the choices they make over a lifetime. I don't want to know what you've done after you decided you want to be president. I want to know who you were when no one was looking. What did you do? What were you doing in the shadows before anybody knew that you even existed? What were the choices you were making? And in that way, Barack is different. First of all, he had a harder way to go than I did. The product of a single-parent household. Mother was 18 when she had him. Everybody knows this story, except she was a young 18-year-old white girl trying to raise a black kid in the 60s. So you know she was a dreamer. And you know that she had to be a little naive. But see, the beauty of that dreaming and the naivete was that she had the nerve to think she could travel the world, study women's issues in other countries like Indonesia. But as a result of her naivete, sometimes Barack and his family lived on food stamps. But he also got to see the world in a way that most Americans will never get to experience. Living in other cultures with traditions so vastly different from his own, but learning to understand and respect them without fear. Understanding what global poverty means up close and personal. Imagine a president of the United States who understands what's going on in small villages in Kisumu in Kenya, not because he's gotten a policy briefing, but because his grandmother still lives in that village. We have not seen a president who brings that kind of sensibility to the White House in my lifetime. And it doesn't stop there. Barack was also raised by Toot and Gramps, his maternal grandparents. Now, see, they were like my parents. The only difference was race, because they were those unremarkable, solid folks who went to work every day with their feet firmly planted on the ground, making sacrifices so that Barack and his sisters and his mother could live a better life. See, and the beauty of Barack was that what he saw in that sacrifice was the same thing that I saw in mine. Even though we didn't have a lot, we knew we were blessed. See, because when you see people who are willing to give up something for you, you know that you owe. And what Barack and I understand is that to whom much is given, much is expected. And I just say, imagine a president of the United States who brings those kind of values into the White House. We learn things in my household like your word is your bond, truth and honesty matter. That when you say you're going to do something, you do it to the best of your ability. We learn that when you're a middle-class working kid, you expect nothing. You don't feel entitled to anything because you know you always have to work harder, be smarter, be quicker, be tougher, and you just do it. You know that you treat people with decency and respect, even if you don't know them or you don't agree with them, because that's the right way to treat people. And we learned that there's nothing more important in this life than your commitment to your family and your community. That's why I married Barack Obama. That's why I know he's going to be one of the best presidents this country has ever seen. Because it is about values and character and consistency over a lifetime. Barack has been a man who's been trying to live those values. Young people, this is something I want our young people to understand. You have to make choices that reflect your values. That is the determination of who you are in this world, what kind of person you are. See, and Barack was making tough choices from the time he got out of college. Could have gone to Wall Street to make a ton of money, but what does he do? He becomes a community organizer, working in some of the toughest neighborhoods on the south side of Chicago. Working with folks who had a reason to be cynical and disappointed in life, in communities that had been completely forgotten. And he worked for years in those communities, busing young mothers down to City Hall who had lost their voice, to teach them how to advocate for change in their community, to get safer streets and better schools, a clean environment, to know that their voice matters. Imagine a president of the United States who brings that kind of experience to the White House. There is no other candidate in this race who can claim that kind of commitment. No one else. And I would imagine in this society where we value that kind of commitment, that you would have to at least show that before you could claim to want to be president of the United States. But see, here in this shifting, moving world, we value people who've made tons of money, who've run large corporations, before we respect folks who worked on the streets with real people. I don't understand it. But those were the choices that Barack made, and it wasn't because he couldn't. Barack's a lawyer, I'm a lawyer, everybody we know are lawyers. I'm sure half the people in this audience are lawyers. There are too many lawyers. And there are many lawyers in this race. Most of them made their millions before they decided to want to work with regular folks, and not Barack. And it wasn't because he couldn't. I remind people, if you want to talk about bar setting, Barack was the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review. And by any objective measure, in terms of sheer intelligence and intellectual capability, he not only met the bar, he leaped over the bar. There is no one in this race who can claim those kind of accomplishments yet. Even though he could have written his ticket and done anything for any price, Barack became a constitutional law scholar and a civil rights attorney in a small firm in Chicago. Why? Because to whom much is given, much is expected. And when you are given the gift of advocacy, you don't sell it to the highest bidder. You work for the least of these. So he worked on issues of justice, housing discrimination, employment discrimination, voting rights discrimination. Not easy challenges. Doesn't stop there. Barack became a state senator not to amass power, but he knows that you can't make change just on hope. You know, if you don't have an understanding and a say in how the laws of this land are working, when you've worked on the streets and have been in the courtrooms, you know you need to understand how power works.